around? You're in Florida?
Hilton Head.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Andy, we do a decent job, I feel like, covering the NFL and the NBA. Golf, for the most part, in the betting space, which leaves a couple of gaping holes. Those have largely focused around what gets played on the ice and on the pitch. And so for those two reasons, we want to introduce a new voice. First ever guest appearance on the Deep Dive, but a guy that I would point a lot of people to say, hey, you know anyone that does good hockey? You know anyone that does good soccer? Yeah, we do know somebody. And his name's Smitty. He's at NHL Picks 2. We are going to do a reset on the NHL playoffs to this point, which is kind of perfect timing because we've got a great playoff so far. And then we're going to talk a little bit of Champions League, a little bit of end of the European club season. So without further ado, first ever time, welcome to the Deep Dive, Mr. Smitty.
Thank you, sirs. That was an intro that I'm not going to be able to live up to, but I will try to fill gaping holes. That's at least something I have.
I know, Drew. You're phrasing every time you just start with these.
Yeah, seriously.
Sorry, I couldn't.
You almost had to. No, it's been a while, and it's funny that I bet normally I could have said, like, I haven't bet a lot of soccer since. I mean, we did go pretty heavy on Euros because Euros is just.
Oh yeah,
I like the FA Cup, and I really like how the Football Association does the tournaments over there. It's wild how it's like, hey, guess what? Like the butchers and bakers and candle guys are they have a team and they're in the same tournament as Man City. Really? Yeah, I mean, Man City jumps in like 13 rounds from now, but it's cool. But I mean, the Euros are my favorite. I like the Euros better than the World Cup, honestly. Like
I agree with you.
It's just it's so compressed, and the fact that I was able to yosh my way into winning of like 0.2 of a unit on the Euros.
You really did yosh your way in. You were prepared to, but you didn't actually have to because you won down the stretch.
I know I had to go 3 units on the final to get there, which had been 1 unit from there on out, so it wasn't too bad. But I've been working with Dan a little, producer Dan, showing him the darker side of betting, which is to say the offshore world. And I'm like, guess what Bovada lets you do? It's like, in case you had fun, it's like, I can live bet just soccer live totals and mash them together. I'm like, this has never gotten me in trouble before. So like today, after Wolves scored, I had Man City to like lead at half with Leicester over 1.5 because it was scoreless at halftime, and just it's an easy game because all I do is bet overs in soccer.
It doesn't hurt.
Common. Yeah, I feel like
it is super common. That's what gets me in trouble because it's like, oh man, they should score. But you do it. You're grinding soccer constantly. That seems like and this was my question that I wanted to lead off with because your two biggest things, soccer. So it's either, like my biggest things, college basketball obviously is there, but that just feels like something I do. Football and golf take a lot of my time, and they fit into this beautiful symbiotic relationship on the calendar. Like when there's football, there's not good golf. There's golf, it's not good. The good golf starts when football's over. Soccer and hockey kind of are at the same time. So it's either really dumb because you have the international break at the same time as when there's no hockey, or it's genius because you get to take like a super big mental break for like a lot of let's just face it, the best part of the year. Like your summers are going to be light because again, there's no NHL, and for the most part, soccer is light. I mean, there are some leagues, but I don't know how far you go down in the summer and start getting, fourth division Georgian. Yeah, don't bet
there were a
on it.
couple summers I was like, oh, Faroe Islands has a league. Let's check that out. Like, let's see what's popping in the Faroe Islands. Like, they have 7 teams. So like 2 are good. Let's just bet them every time they play. See what happens.
And Faroe Islands is near the poles, so they have light really late. So it would make sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
You find yourself like, drifting into like Norwegian leagues and Swedish leagues, and Iceland is available, like all the places that are, normally cold when England and France and Spain are playing. But no, it's a good break. You're right. Like, and I like to kind of do nothing in the summertime. Like I don't even try to bet baseball. I'll tail some guys that I like or think is smart, but yeah, no hoops, no baseball. So summer's just cool. Like I'm just chilling. But yeah, like come October, everything goes to 100. It's 0 to 100, as they say.
Yeah.
And then it's like nonstop until like now, actually. The Champions League final is basically like the end of your soccer season for the, for everybody, like for the big leagues and for the Champions League, Europa's done, like, and then everybody just cools it for a little while, which is nice. But yeah, you mentioned those international breaks. Those are nice because it's like, oh, Premier League's off for like 10 days. Like, thank Christ. Like, I need to sleep a little bit and, see the family for like, are they still here? Like that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a good grind though. But like, I don't know, like, I guess you get used to it. Like, I feel like you guys who do college basketball, there's 100 college basketball games every single night of the week. And it's just like, I don't know how you do that. Like, so that's, I don't know. I guess you just get used to what you get used to.
Yeah, there's a cadence to it. And it's just like anything, some of these baseball guys where there's all of a sudden it's like, hey, there's like 15 games today and like 6 of them start at noon. Surprise. You have even less time to look at these numbers.
Right.
I'd say at least they're not being played at the same time, like hockey and soccer. At least like you have a little bit of a calendar break, right? Like I don't mind doing tennis and NBA at the same time in the spring because all the tennis in Europe is going off in the morning and then NBA is in the evening, so you don't really have to have your eyes on both markets at the same time in general. But let's talk a little bit about the hockey season. We're a little later than we normally would be, wrapping up we're at the pointy end of round 1 and business end of round 1 here with a bunch of these series still in the balance, although it looks like your Penguins, is it fair to say your Penguins?
It is fair to say my Penguins.
Your Penguins are in a closeout situation and they're up 1-0. So again, appreciate your time joining us on a Penguins night. But we're at the end of round 1, which is delayed. Usually we're here in April. But that's fine. And we're going to get in hockey a little later than usual. What were some of the kind of global observations you have about this hockey season, betting it day in, day out? And how have the playoffs been so far?
This was a good year for favorites. And I don't know like what books, what their numbers would have looked like on a day-to-day basis or what they would have come out with at the end of the year. But favorites came in at like 68% this year, which is a pretty good year. Because hockey, I mean, you bet a lot of dogs. You find yourself betting a lot of dogs because a lot of times those favorites, like it's not uncommon to see routine like 4, 5, 6 games where it's like every favorite is minus 275 or higher, and you're like, that's a waste of everybody's time. We're not going to do that. So you could take your shot on some dogs and they'll pay out. But yeah, favorites were good. And they would go on these long runs. I remember talking to some guys. It was like, if you've looked back at like the last 2 weeks, favorites are running at like 37-10, stuff like that. So if you liked a lot of chalk, this was a good year for you in terms of betting hockey.
So the money line parlay players
where was I?
Flush.
Yeah, like sometimes you feel kind of like a turd or a square, like posting those types of things, but it's like it's staring you right in the face.
It is what it
is.
Yeah.
You're like, there is absolutely no way Colorado and Florida are going to lose tonight, and I'll put them in a money line parlay at minus 125, and we'll all collect money. Like
that's where it comes down to the math of it all again, where we start looking at it, and I think that's where when people start. They're like, hey, I have a sports book now. I kind of understand this. And maybe they find gambling Twitter, or they get in a chat room, or what are the message boards, or gambling Instagram, and they start to learn stuff. And then they they realize like people are making fun of people for betting favorites. And that becomes like one of those first things you think you learned that's not true is like, oh, betting dogs is sharp.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times betting dogs are sharp, but there's a lot of times where, you know, I don't want to just go to the standard boilerplate McGregor thing constantly, but like there are times where it's like, hey, they're a favorite, but they should be a much bigger favorite. That's where we always encourage like people just start thinking of it as percentages, because it doesn't matter if they're minus 275 and you have to lay it, or if you want to lay a puck line there, because if they should be minus 400, then 275 is just as bad of a number as a team being a dog when they should be favored slightly. So it's silly when people get, you know, all mad. Oh, all you do is bet favorites. I'm like, no, those numbers are wrong. I think they win.
You'd have lost a shit ton of money being sharp betting against the Avalanche or the Florida Panthers, you know, like those types of teams. Like it was like that year that the Browns went, you know, like 0-16, and it was like, oh, all the sharps are on the Browns this week. You know, like
they can't be 10-point dogs.
Yeah,
that's too many points.
You're given 11, and it's like, yeah, they're gonna get the shit kicked out of them. Like that's what's gonna happen. So, no, you're right. You kind of get over that pretty quickly, and you just kind of go where you think you need to go. But when you're kind of grinding it every night, you kind of look at some different. It's not like the NFL, you know, like where you're looking at like this one, you know, singular event every, you know, 6-7 days. So you just kind of look at, I mean, trends do come into play, and people were like, "Oh, you're a trends better," and it's like not necessarily. But you want to pay attention to what's occurring like in the league as a, you know, with these teams, you know, with travel and backup goalies and injuries, because everybody gets hurt at some point along the way, and these guys are playing, you know, like 4-6, 7-9, like that kind of thing, and so just, you know, just little things like that, just pay attention to. But no, Fave's had a good year, which will probably kind of even itself out next year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like sometimes there are some tennis tournaments where it's a favorites tournament, like Australian Open after the first round. Like if, you know, whatever chalk gets through, they're going. You don't. If you're a dog better, skip the Aussie Open, skip Wimbledon,
right?
Show up for the U.S. Open. That's where like the real, insanity.
That's true. Or just or clay season,
or just like, clay season. Yeah,
clay season. You can find a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, there are certain things where, you know, it's better to have that type of strategy if you're looking for value on the dogs in general. I guess if we were to say that in general the the favorites came through, was it a matter of like the league itself is becoming a haves and have-nots? Like if you have like an elite level offensive generator if you have an elite first line, then, you know, it was going to be tough for really anyone in the bottom half to really make a dent.
Yes. That really is like Calgary has an amazing top line. The Avs are as deep as they come. Florida averaged over 4 goals per game in the regular season. That's the first time a team has done that since 1996. So like that's not normal. You know, and you have the Penguins, but then you also have teams with like super good goaltending, like the New York Rangers. Like they got to where they are because of Igor Shesterkin. Like he's struggling in this playoff series, but they're only there because of him, because they kind of play a wheel and deal run and gun, you know, in front of him, and he just bails them out every single time. So yeah, like the Minnesota was kind of the same way. The only teams that like in the playoffs that maybe were a little bit different than that were like the Caps. Like the Caps were pretty even, you know, even Steven, and we're pretty deep. The LA Kings don't have any standout lines or superstars of any sort, and they are currently beating the Edmonton Oilers, who, if you want to talk superstars,
they have a good player. They have two.
I mean, Adrian Kempe scored he scored a career high. He might have had like 34, 35 goals, and he's been playing well this series. And he's on a line with, you know, Philip Deneau and another guy that, you know, normal people wouldn't really, you know. They would know McDavid and they would know Draisaitl, and they would go, how is that team losing 3-2 to, you know, the LA Kings? But
I wonder that myself.
Yeah. And here we are. Like, it's just so. Yeah, you did see sort of like cream rise to the top there, you know, with scoring and superstars, and, you know, if you have that 1 to 2 lines, you're in.
We've talked some hockey, and I talked to, you know, Matt here. He does some hockey betting during the week. I talked to him during the daily shows sometimes, but just kind of thinking on a bigger level, like what's been your experience over like this 3-season sample where we went from the season was weird, and then it came back, and we had you had the
Bubble.
the two bubbles in Canada, followed by guess what? Like, we're gonna mix them together at the end. It's fine. And then last year it was there weren't bubbles, but they're like, we're gonna do regional shit
Super
for a while.
regions, yeah.
You're just gonna play all the same teams constantly.
You weren't allowed over the border.
Yeah, and all the Canadian teams had their own thing.
Right.
You weren't allowed over the border until the playoffs. Then we could do it. And once we get to the Final Four, then it's fine now. And then now back to normal. Obviously, the schedule got shifted a little, but like, what kind of adjustments did you have to make over 3 years of dealing with this shit?
It was a lot more. It was a lot more like eye test gut related during all the COVID stuff, because the models kind of got thrown out the window. Like the numbers would tell you one thing, and you noticed like after about 2.5 months into the season, it was like, these models are good. They normally work, but it's like we have to adjust them in some capacity because they're just not taking into account how fucked up this entire situation is with COVID and no fans and no travel and weird divisions where you're not playing the teams that you would normally. So like the data that you would enter into these models that would kind of give you a nice little baseline and an understanding of like, okay, let me get an idea of like where we're going and how this is looking. It wasn't there, so trying to adjust those models was a real pain in the ass that like, I mean, there were probably guys smarter than me who were able to figure out, the secret formula, so to speak, and the special ingredients needed to kind of get the adjustments that they were looking for. And I really wasn't, it wasn't working for me. So it was a lot of watching hockey and like just going old school, like,
sure.
You want to go out to dinner tonight? No, I have to watch the New Jersey Devils play the New York Islanders tonight. So, like that kind of stuff. Just to kind of get a feel for like what do these teams look like? How are they looking? How are they playing? Just to kind of like go old school feel for hockey. And so, I mean, and it's not like I don't watch hockey. I do. I watch probably a lot more than I probably should. But to have that balance back, like you mentioned, like, did we see, good goaltenders rise to the top? Did we see teams with good lines, solid top line, maybe two lines, like rise to the top? We did. Like it kind of came back to normal this year, like not all the way, but it's so much, I don't want to say easier because it's never easy, but it was so much more like results you would look at and not be totally shocked by, like that.
The eye test thing too checks out, because I think nobody should ever do something. There's no absolutes in life, but in sports betting, especially, like, this is how I do it. And, we talk about this all the time with edges drying up or changes to, I mean, even major rule changes, equipment changes in sports, and everything makes such a big difference. The transfer portal rules and college basketball have turned into an enormous pain in the ass for the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. A lot of those things you can turn on their head. It looks like this is going to be a mess. But then you realize, like, that's going to be a mess for the sports books too. I think I can figure something out here. And that eye test thing really rung true for me. Like with golf, I was not an eye test guy. Just really strong numbers to the point where, like, I think it was last fall, I was in the golf chat. I'm like, hey, did you guys know that Doug Gim is Asian? Like, it wasn't like a real, it's not an Asian name in my head, I guess. But I'd never seen the guy on TV, and he pops up. I'm like, he's just, he's an American golfer, but he's an Asian American, I guess. And they're like, have you never seen Doug Gim? I'm like, I don't really. I watch some golf, but I watch a lot of golf on the weekends, and he's not winning tournaments, you guys. They're like, all right, that's fair. So right. I get shit about Doug Gim still, but like the when you don't have complete stats, or you think the stats are going to lie to you, so you do need to spend a lot more time watching. And it comes down to the doubles tournament. What do you want to call it? The match play, and then the team tournament, where you don't get good stats like you normally would in golf. Because in match play, they're picking up balls when they concede holes. So you don't get actual stats. I'm like, I'm just going to have to watch a shitload of golf to actually tell you who's playing well or not. And the same thing with the team tournaments. It's like, and after those, I got to thinking, I'm like, I need to watch it just a lot more golf in general. I think I picked up a lot of stuff here. Just the time commitment. The time commitment is heavy for a lot of that.
I don't need to repeat all this, but same experience in the NBA. I had a very heavy data-driven approach in 2019 and 2020 up until the bubble. The bubble itself was an entirely different game because they were playing in a gym with no fans. And so you had to watch to get to understand what was happening and how the game changed. And then similarly, like with no fans, offensive efficiencies that we saw in the NBA last year were unprecedented. Threes were going in at an impossibly high rate. And you had to have eyes on it to understand how to handicap it with the game effectively entirely changed. And I feel like that made me a little bit better handicapper. I guess, did you pick up any, did you feel like returning to normal this year? Like you had picked up some tricks from a year where you spent maybe, more of your effort doing it, kind of the old school grind?
I think a little bit. Yeah. Like the one thing that did stand out when the NHL was playing in empty buildings, particularly in the playoffs. Well, regular season and playoffs, but like it was something that actually did stand out were the goalies. The goalies were a lot better. It was almost like you could sense and see that they felt like I'm just at practice. Like this is just a practice. Like there's just two teams in front of me, like that might have pennies on, and they're just playing, and I'm stopping pucks. Like not to say that there wasn't pressure, particularly in the playoffs, but it's like if you've ever been I'm not trying to compare sports, but if you've ever been in like a game 6, game 7 NHL playoff environment in that building, like when you're at home, it is the loudest, most intense thing I have ever seen as a sports fan. And I've been to a lot of sporting events, and it's just like, and that you can feel that, and those goalies feel it. And like, that's why they're such weirdos, because they have to be, like, in order to tune that stuff out, right? Like you need to be like as calm, cool, and collected as possible. But like when the building is empty and you can hear guys talking to each other on the ice, and you can kind of almost know what's coming before it's coming. That was the one thing that I noticed. Like there were a lot more unders that books didn't necessarily adjust to. I mean, they did eventually, but like early on, you were like, we can hit a lot of unders. We can hit a lot of first period unders, because these goalies are going to be locked in like immediately. And then you think like, okay, can they carry it over? And some goalies were able to, like Fleury's always kind of a beast, but like Jordan Binnington, who became sort of a superstar when the St. Louis Blues won the cup, he lost his job this year, so he wasn't the same dude. And you were like, was he a product of the environment? Was he a product of the bubble? And like, and he got hot and he got on a run, but he can't sustain that under these normal circumstances. But then he wins his job back, and now the Blues lead 3-2 against the Wild. So yeah, like that was the one thing that really stood out. Like those goaltenders, like you could tell, you could see a difference in those guys.
Okay, well, your Penguins lit the lamp a second time, looking pretty good that they're going to punch their ticket around too.
That feels good.
And do you want us to tell you when they score, or are you recording?
Are you
DVRing this?
Nope, I actually, there's TV is off. My phone is in another room. I'm like, we got to concentrate and focus on what
I love it. Okay, so the Penguins, let's assume that this is not a jinx. They look good.
They do.
Let's assume they move on. Were they undervalued coming into this year because of the experience factor that team brings to the table? And I would specifically because the guys that I thought of as true breakouts this year, young guys broke out, just had incredible seasons. They're not struggling, but their teams certainly aren't like playing well around them. Boston Matthews and the Maple Leafs may ultimately move on, but it's definitely hasn't been easy for them. Similarly, Oilers, you mentioned losing right now to the Kings. Was there a hard adjustment for some of these young players going from a regular season environment to a playoff environment? And how much does experience matter now in the playoffs?
I think it always matters. Like no matter what, it's going to matter. And you see it. I mean, you see it with the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were a slight underdog coming in. I think it was, most books were like -115, -105. So it was close. It was tight. But I feel like most people were picking the Rangers because they do have a fast team. They have a skilled team, and they have the Vezina Trophy winner. Igor Shesterkin will win the Vezina. That's just, you can go ahead and lock that up. And so I think, couple that with the fact that I think I've had this conversation coming into every playoffs for like the last 4 years about the Penguins. You know, like with Sid and Gino and Letang, those guys have played together for like 16 years, which is an NHL record amongst teammates. Like nobody's ever played together for that period of time. But then they come in to the first round and they poop their pants. Like they've done it 3 straight years. The Islanders got them twice. The Rangers got them once, and they haven't won a playoff series in like 4 years, which is kind of wild. So I do think they were undervalued. I do think you're seeing that experience play through because now let's not forget they're playing with their third string goaltender. Like Louis Domingue is in the net and he's doing a solid job. He's by no means stealing games or winning games for them. He's solid. He's doing what he needs to do. And then the Penguins in front of him are doing the rest. Sidney Crosby's been the best player in the playoffs so far. This particular, like, I guess it's a handful of games, but nevertheless, he's been amazing. So yeah, I think they were undervalued, but like young dudes, like you're talking about, like Austin Matthews, you know, if it's not for McJesus, he's going to win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch Marner, his sidekick there, had a fantastic year as well. And it's like now they're up 3-2 against the 2-time defending champions, and it's like, but you still you're like, I still need to see it. You know, like I need to see the Leafs actually close somebody out. They had the Habs 3-1 last year, lost. They had the Bruins 3-2 in 2019, lost. So, and it's the same core group. Like the only dude they've really added was Tavares. So, and it's the Bolts. Like, and they're by no means done. Now you got to go to Tampa Bay and try to do it again. So, I mean, they, I think, are on the cusp. Like a guy like Kirill Kaprizov in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
that somebody help that kid. Like, Christ, Minnesota.
Nice.
Like, Minnesota has scored 11 goals in this series, and he has 7 of them. Like, somebody else help this kid out. You know, he's 24 years old, and he's carrying this team on his back, and it's still not enough because they're down 3-2. And it's not over, like, by any means, but now they got to go to St. Louis and win a game to force Game 7. So I think the team that is struggling with their young guys is the Calgary Flames. Like, they have one of those top lines that you were referring to earlier. Like, it's Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and they have been bottled up. But it's not for lack of trying. Like, I went back and looked at it before this evening, and I'm like, they've had to put a lot of they've put 41 shots on goal, lost. They put 29 shots on goal, lost. And then they put 54 shots on goal last game, and they finally won. But even then, it wasn't easy. So,
yeah.
So you think, like, are pucks going to start to go in? You know, is that good? Is like there going to be some regression to that mean? Like, Jake Ottinger can't continue to play like he's Patrick Waugh, can he? And so, I mean, I've already put my money where my mouth is tonight. I bet them in the late game to win in regulation because I don't think Dallas can sustain that. But yeah, these young guys, like, they're sometimes, like with Matthews and Marner, like, they're this close. You know, there's guys like Kaprizov who have stepped up, but he's been the only dude to step up, you know? So, and then the Flames it's not for lack of trying, but it's like, come on, boys, you know, like, let's get it going. So yeah, It's like, it's still kind of a wait and see, you know, like how this is going to play out. Cause there is still hockey to be played. We're going to see some Game 7s. That's for sure. Like
Toronto, Tampa, Game 7.
I think so. I think
let me ask you a quick question.
That'll be so. I enjoy
awesome.
watching.
I'd be so awesome.
Leafs fans.
So awesome.
The entirety of Canada is literally going to be like
win or lose. That is an awesome. We all win. If the Game 7 happens, a win or lose, we all win.
What's a shitty part of what's like the worst part of the arena to sit in? Is it behind the goal? I just looked at Game 7 tickets for St. Paul.
It is kind of tough. You'd want to be at least on that corner. You know, like you want to at least be on the corner, kind of like where the line is tunnel behind the net, like behind the goalie crease. Yeah. Like you want to at least get there. You don't want to be like full on because then it's kind of tough. Like when the action comes down in front of you, you're kind of like doing one of these.
Yeah, I don't want that.
You don't want that.
Okay. So speaking of Toronto, I had low expectations for them, frankly. I
mean, nobody would blame you.
It was the bottom half, the bottom third of the NHL defense and goaltending in general over the balance of this season. It was all offense. That tends to be more difficult when the going gets tough in the playoffs. And yet here they are up 3-2. what is that a fair characterization for Tampa? And are we still in an era where defense matters in the playoffs? Or is because honestly, like I haven't really been impressed with any of the goalies that I've seen so far
Yeah.
in these playoffs. At least any of the goalies in any of these meaningful series. So, is it still defense first in the playoffs?
To some extent, yeah. But it's not like these. It just turns into a slugfest, and it's quicksand instead of ice, and every game is going to end up 2-1. But the Leafs. I think the one thing we needed to see from the Leafs was guts. Like, do you have some balls? Can you actually do something when you have been pushed, to the wall? And they did it. They did it last game. They were down 2-0 after that first period. They looked like shit. And you kind of think, okay, here come the back-to-back defending champs. Like this is where this series turns. And then Marner steps up, Matthews steps up, William Nylander stepped up, and that dude took a lot of shit prior to the game because there was a play, and they replayed it a million times on hockey Twitter, where like a puck goes into the corner, Leafs are down like 2 or 3 at the time, and Nylander's like, nah, fuck it, I'm not going in that corner. Like I'm not going in there because I'm going to get killed, but I'm not even going to go in there to make a play. So
sure.
But you're waiting for the Leafs to have some guts, and they showed a little bit of that the other night. But like, there's still some stats like Tampa Bay, they've only faced elimination one time in the last 2 years. And that's when they won. And that was against the Islanders in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Whoa.
And like, they're 16-0 after a loss. The last
I've seen that brought up.
Seasons.
Oh, I don't even follow that many hockey accounts. I saw that brought up like 6 times before and after the game. There's like, is this free money? Like, what it's the butterfly guy meme.
That's what I mean. So you asked me, like, are we going to Game 7 in Toronto? That's why I think so. Like, because again, it comes back to a couple of your earlier points. Like, does experience matter? Yes. Who has more than the Tampa Bay Lightning outside of maybe the Pittsburgh Penguins? So like that experience is there. Home ice is there, a Vezina winning goaltender who's won 2 cups, a 16-0 record after a loss, right? Only facing elimination. This is the second time in 2 years. So like, that's not a knock on the Leafs. It's just more of like props for Tampa Bay. Like, so I do think we'll be headed back to Toronto for a game.
Is now the buy low on the Lightning if you think that experience comes or was the lengthy season, the back-to-back cups, the fact that you played so deep into the summer last year and turned right around with another season, is the fatigue finally going to cost them? And this is sort of what we're seeing now, that that is the deciding factor.
I think it's yes and yes. Before when I wrote up my predictions prior to the playoffs beginning, I had Leafs in 7.
Okay.
And so I kind of saw it playing out in this sort of fashion, not to toot my own horn, but like it did kind of feel like this would be. I got every played out.
Game score predicted right. It was just,
like
it was the moment of
it would be such a fairy tale, man, for Toronto. Like to finally win that Game 7. Like when people kind of expect you to do it, and to do it against a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like this isn't the Montreal Canadiens. No offense to them, but this would be huge. Like this would be a huge momentum builder, and like a marker in the sand for this franchise, honestly. Like, and for those young kids like Marner and Matthews, like I feel like that's how I feel it plays out. I feel like the Bolts win Game 6, and then Toronto finds a way in Game 7. But like, to the defensive point, I mentioned the Florida Panthers scoring over 4 goals a game, in the regular season, first time since 96. They're now averaging 2.25 against the Washington Capitals. And that's not because the Caps have good goaltenders. Their goaltenders are trash. I mean,
they're down right now.
Are they really? Again?
It's 1-0 first intermission. It's not. But I mean, they win another first period without scoring.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek are the dudes who are playing goaltender for the Washington Capitals, and that's an .896 save percentage, 3.02 goals against, .908 save percentage, 2.67 goals against. That is pedestrian and below pedestrian. And you have the most offensively gifted team we've seen since the mid-90s not be able to score goals. So it's like, it's just a question of like, is it going to click? Like, is it going to happen for this team? because it's not necessarily, what Washington's doing to them. It's just like Washington's heavy. They're frustrating. They'll hit you. They'll slow the game down. Like they're a cup champion too. Like it's not like they don't know what they're doing. So that's, I think, the experience part. Like if you're looking for a team who was a heavy favorite that now has inexperience, like really rearing its head and catching up with them, it's the Florida Panthers. I think they're in trouble. Like I think by no means are they a guarantee to win that series, even though they're minus 310 and the Caps are plus 255. I would take a little bit of Caps at plus 255 for sure. Like,
Okay.
Because I don't think the Panthers are guaranteed of anything right now.
One of our loyal listeners, the Hef, brings up a point that I was going to, but we might as well just jump right to it.
Yeah,
so the Leafs
the
are
bracket
plus
thing.
270 to win the series, but second favorite to win the cup. I don't think they're plus 70 to win the series. But they're they're basically the second choice right now to lift the Stanley Cup after the Avs, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
The Leafs are
currently on the market, which is mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like their path is substantially harder. Like they could potentially, there's I just don't see it path wise that is a fair price for them, just because of how they'll be priced in the next couple series.
Well, especially if Florida gets their shit together and if your path ends up being Florida, Carolina, Avalanche, like in what world couldn't you parlay those series prices and get like 10 to 1?
Yeah.
Like 6-6 seems silly. Well,
right.
Let's say everything comes up Toronto and they make it to the finals and the Avalanche drop one game to St. Louis and like 2 games in the conference finals. Like, what's that series price for Avs Leafs? I give it a V.
Probably still Avs minus like 190.
Yeah. No,
that
sounds right to me. Yeah. So that begs the question. You could potentially continue to, if you like the Leafs, if you feel like they're putting something special together this year.
Leafs year, as they say, every year.
You can still probably catch more value going series by series than betting into this absurd, deflated.
I wouldn't. I don't want any part of an Eastern Conference future. Like I just don't like. Even if you were like, oh, who would you throw a dart at or a flyer on? It's like, Christ, I don't know, man. Like, there's Carolina, there's Toronto, there are the Penguins, there's potentially the Bolts if they do beat Toronto. Like, and then there's Florida if they do get their shit together, like Andy mentioned. So like, I have no idea who's coming out of the East. I have no idea, but I do know Colorado's coming out of the West. Like that's happening. Like I would be beyond shocked if somebody beats Colorado in the West. I would have a hard time.
The way both Minnesota and St. Louis have looked, if that's a grinded out 7-game series and the Avs are well rested, that seems like not a walkover, but there's, like you said, Minnesota's not getting offense from anywhere else besides our Russian, and I don't know, St. Louis is probably overperforming, and then they'd be a decent favorite to Calgary.
Like Avs would get Minnesota or St. Louis in the next round. And then potentially the
minus 280 faves or more.
I put it at like minus 240. Minus 250 against either of those teams. I had them like 1 or 2 percentage points different, Minnesota and St. Louis. So basically the same thing. So yeah, I think minus 240, minus 250 in the next round. And then
how about against the Kings in the Western Conference Finals?
Oh, this is what we're doing? Kings are taking on Calgary.
I'm just messing. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess is Calgary come out of the bottom half of that?
I mean, imagine a world where the Kings beat Edmonton and Dallas beats Calgary. Like, what the hell are we even talking about?
Laughing.
Considering what I've seen so far in these playoffs, that is imaginable.
It is. It's very imaginable, right? And so, like, that's why I'm saying, like, the Avs winning the Western Conference, I don't even care what the number is right now. If you haven't bet it, just go bet it. Just go bet it because it's coming in. Like, it's happening.
I agree with that.
Someone said it's minus 115.
There's some pluses out there. There's some pluses out there if you shop around. But realistically, like, it is set up. The West looks like it's set up for chaos to ensue. Minnesota going out. is chaotic.
Right.
Right. Like Minnesota
Right.
was meaningfully better than the Blues by everybody who
They just did. They
who
did all the right
handicapped
things
this.
at the trade deadline. Like they fixed things. Now they still look like shit.
Yeah, but I mean, just every other good team in the West might not make round 2, which would all of that equity just spills directly into the Avs pot.
All right, now I got to shop. If I lag right now in the video, it's because I'm opening up 11 tabs at once. I have a shortcut.
I mean, even if the favorites did win, even if Calgary beats Dallas, even if Edmonton beats LA, I mean, I don't care. Like, I still don't care. I mean, it's not going to change those numbers that drastically. Like, I get the name value of Draisaitl and McDavid, but like, as a team, no chance they beat Colorado in a 7-game series. I thought at the beginning that Calgary and Minnesota had the 2 best shots at least pushing the Avs. Not even really beating them, but just pushing them, like giving them something to think about every once in a while. And like, yeah, Minnesota could lose tomorrow night and it's over. And we'll see tonight, you know, if Jake Ottinger makes another 85 saves up in the Saddle Dome and they take a 3-2 lead on Calgary. So yeah, by any way you slice it, Avalanche are coming out of the West, but the East is just all those teams are like they're all so good and all so equal. Like there's nothing that really you can point to say like, well, this is what separates the Leafs from everybody else. This is what separates the Pens from everybody else. Like it's not like that. I mean, the only team that had something like that going for them was Florida's offense, and it has vanished. It's now gone. Until it comes back and they're losing, as Andy meant, like they're already down 1-0. So you'd think like, how about a little urgency here, boys? You know, like let's get it going, and then they're down 1-0. So
I laid the hook line with them tonight, thinking we were going to see something after they got that kind of safe and death moment in Game 4, but it's not happening so far.
I don't blame you, but it's just
Okay. Is there anyone who has a goalie that is got a ceiling high enough that they could stand on their head for 2 months and win a cup?
I think Jacob Markstrom could do that for the Calgary Flames.
Okay.
I think that was one of the reasons why I thought the Flames could at least push Colorado, because maybe he could steal 1 or 2. You know what I mean? Like the Avs throw 54 shots on goal and he stops all but 1, you know, and the Flames win 2-1, you know, that kind of deal. I think he can do it. I don't think, like in the East, I don't think it's Jack Campbell. I don't think it's Bobrovsky. It's definitely not Louis Domingue. I really hope Tristan Jarry gets healthy soon, because that's going to be a total bummer if we got to like watch Louis Domingue play every other night. It's not Jonathan Quick. It's not Mike Smith. Marc-Andre Fleury.
If he survives tomorrow, you know.
But right, like, but again, like they're going to run into the buzzsaw that is Colorado, like, and then Antti Ranta with Carolina. So short answer, no. I don't really see it.
Avalanche, Avs, it is.
It really is. Like it's. I mean, I know everybody has been saying that, like, this is the Avs year, but like, it's tough, man. Like you got to go through some shit. You know, to like, you gotta, in order to learn how to win, you gotta experience some losses, and you gotta and some tough ones too. And
and it's been a few years of the Avs being like, this is a top team in the West, but then they do this weird, you know, let's create a rivalry bracket, and they got paired up in some pretty tough spots. Like, you know, this first round matchup or the second round matchup should be the conference finals. A couple.
I hate the format. And I hate the weird format I hate the real format, and I hated the made up format that they had, you know, with the bubble stuff. But like, in no way, shape, or form did anybody want to see the Vegas Golden Knights play the Colorado Avalanche when the Knights were at peak Knights power. You know, like when they were going and playing for the Stanley Cup against Tampa Bay. Like, in order to do that, they had to get past Colorado. So, and those two teams didn't even meet in the Western Conference Final. They met in the second round of the playoffs. Yeah. So like. But to that point, Colorado has now been through it. You know, like they've experienced those playoff series. They've experienced the highs and the lows. They've gotten beat. They've as an underdog and as a favorite. And so like and then you look at like the rest of the Western Conference, like the layout of the bracket, and you go, okay, Colorado. Like,
Yeah.
if not now, when? You know, if not now, when? So
Plus, we didn't even mention they're through.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
they're,
4.
they're
They're
sitting-
resting. And
they're-
honestly, they were so clearly the 1 seed that they didn't even have to play a ton of very tough games down the home stretch. So this is a team that has the freshest legs.
they demolished Nashville. But like, here's a good stat for
Remember
you.
that first game? It was like I thought the thing was
Felt
broken.
like it was.
No,
yeah,
they killed them.
it
They had
felt
one
like-
tight game, and then
felt
they
like-
had one overtime game. One game went to OT, and they still won that, obviously. But going back to Calgary, and the reason why I think, like, not saying Calgary will win, but like that's the one team I think could give them some trouble. Calgary's expected goals for at 5v5 when you get a little fancy with the stats. So you look at expected goals for at 5v5, so no power plays.
Mhm.
Calgary is currently at 60% in that series versus Dallas, and it's 2-2. That's the identical number of the Avs 5v5 expected goals for versus Nashville, and they swept Nashville. So that just goes to show you the type of defense and goaltending that Dallas is currently getting versus Calgary, which is why I feel like that's not sustainable for the Stars. That, like, the Flames are going to, I hope by tonight, like, take control of this series and ultimately win this thing.
So you think Avs over Wild in round 2?
Or
Well,
or
I'm
Blues,
just,
either way.
I'm just giving
Yeah.
Andy some hope that he's Game 7.
They do have
Wild.
hope. I mean, it's not. I do think that's going to go 7 as well. If I had
Flames
to,
over Kings. We didn't even
Yeah.
mention really anything about the Oilers.
Or
coming
Oilers.
back- Oilers with the series bet at this point, or are the Kings just feeling themselves?
well, that's actually the lowest favorite number on the board. Like, all these teams that are up 3-2 have really big numbers. Like St. Louis is minus 280 right now against Minnesota, up 3-2, but LA is only like minus 170. So it's
Okay.
books aren't necessarily ready to put their confidence into the LA Kings just yet. So I think that's going 7. I think Minnesota St. Louis is going 7. I do think Calgary and Dallas. I think tonight's the night. If it's not, then I'm going to be pissed, and I'm wrong. I will admit I'm wrong, but I think tonight's the night for the Flames. As for Florida,
Not tonight. For
I don't know, man. Yeah, like I want to see it before I even think about putting any money near them, for
Yeah,
sure.
moments into the second period, they are down
They're
3-0.
3-0 now.
Yeah. Yeah. Not great.
Wow.
It's only 4
Wow.
minutes. Yeah, Oshie and Schultz scored. Oshie has
Bang,
2.
bang.
Look
Bang,
at that.
bang.
That's a person I know.
Wow.
But yeah, Drew,
They're
I
gonna
looked at
lose.
Game 7 in
That's
Minnesota
wild.
is on a Saturday night. Like, those tickets are going to be expensive anyway, and I'm just reminded that I have a fun run that day.
Oh. How about that?
I'm not in fun run shape. This is gonna be bad.
I can't wait
If you're
to hear how
gonna,
that goes.
if you're gonna buy them,
Is it a 5K?
buy the good ones.
How is it, like a mile or a 5K? How long are you running on your fun run, Andy? For real?
I don't know, 5K probably.
Is it really 5K? You're gonna run? When was the last time you ran 3.1 miles?
3.2, I believe. Is 5K.
Is it 3.1?
I've ran a few. I did a few warrior dashes back in the day. Honestly, running's like riding a bike. You just go. And if
Nothing
you don't want
like
to run
I
it,
did it back in the day. That's confidence. That sounds like
I know
confidence.
that the first warrior dash I did was like, we got there and we're like, why are we at a ski resort? Oh, you got to run up the ski hills. And I'm like, well, this
Ooh.
fucking sucks. Like, I'm tired already. Just look at it. But they had beer afterwards. So the fun run is an oxymoron. It's not going to be fun. The kids are in it. Whatever. We'll have fun and then I'll get drunk. But I'll probably watch the game. Game 7. That's my Saturday night plans. That's how confident I am in Game 6.
I like it.
Watching
Same.
Game 7 from the X.
Same.
I should talk to a wife about heading up. There's a really good bar next to the X
Mhm.
where I could spend probably as much as tickets would cost, truthfully, to get hammered on 2 gingers. But
Well, let me ask you then, pivoting from hockey to the pitch, would you say you have similar or very different processes, ways of coming about a handicap between those two sports?
Similar. Yeah,
Okay.
it's similar. Just using the data, using the models, and then watching. I mean, admittedly, soccer, like betting on soccer, is at least pretty new to me.
Okay.
That's like 2018, 2019. So it's still it's still a work in progress with a bit of a learning curve there, and
Okay.
like each league is different too. Like
I was just going to ask, do you do any KHL or SHL or any of that or
No.
OHL?
no way.
I mean, because that's a good analog to this. Those leagues are different styles of hockey. And
Yes,
that's the biggest thing you hear about soccer is like, what, you can't approach the EPL the same way you approach Bundesliga. Like it's different soccer.
that's true though. That is certainly true. And so like when I first started, I was kind of spraying the board, you know what I mean? Thinking like, well, this is like a one size fits all sort of deal, you know? So I would be betting like Serie A and La Liga. And, you know, I'm looking at games in France and I'm just, you know, and it was very quickly, I realized you need to fucking cut that out. Like that's enough of this because, you know, I'm not betting on that Farmers League in France anymore. No, thank you. The Bundesliga, there's one good team. That's it. Everybody else is just kind of unpredictable. La Liga is a little bit more like centrist, and then the Premier League is like kind of where I'm at. So, but the Premier League, it's gotten a lot sharper. It's like in terms of like soccer leagues, they're like the NFL of soccer leagues in terms of like sharp lines. You know, like in terms, and you gotta. But like you mentioned offshores a while back, like because of the state I live in, I still exist in the murky world of offshores. So like, oh yeah. So,
but
no
they idea what you're talking about.
But they allow you. Me neither. I'm sorry.
Can't imagine.
I digress. Yeah, you can find more options to kind of like find value in some plays. But like, yeah, I've pretty much honed it in on the Premier League at this point with like a couple of teams. Like I found a couple of teams that I like to bet on. Like there's a team in Portugal, Sporting CP. They are unstoppable at home. They win every game 2-0 at home. So like if the line is -1, -125, -1.5, just blind take it because they're going to win 2-0. It's happening. So like little things like that. But yeah, process is similar, but Premier League is kind of where it's been dialed. I'm trying to dial that in, particularly with City games, Man City games.
Do you have a team?
City.
Yeah. What happened, man? What happened?
What?
What happened?
They're just allergic to the one. It's gonna be funnier when they add Holland and they do it again next year.
Andy, don't speak that. Don't even manifest that into the world. Like that's not funny.
It'll happen once Pep's gone. Pep can't do it. It's
Pep,
funny.
Listen, Pep is re-upping his contract. He's going to be there for another 3 to 4 years.
It's a 3-trophy team.
Holland is on board, and they will obviously become so much more clinical in front of goal, which is what they need to do. Like they're so deep, and their second 11 would probably finish 3rd or 4th in the Premier League. And that's not arrogance speaking. That's just like that's how deep this team is. And that's,
nobody seems to want to finish 4th, so I'll give them 4th.
Oh, tomorrow's going to be fun, man, with Arsenal and Spurs tomorrow. That's a huge.
That basically
game.
Decides it.
Who's your team?
Pretty close. That's huge.
Gunners this year. I have some Gunners 6-1 to finish top 4. So
you need tomorrow.
I told Dan about this. I was reconciling spreadsheets. Couldn't figure out why one account was off, and it had cashed a ticket early for me. You know, some places will cash like season win total tickets early.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Brentford was even money to be the top promoted team out of, I mean, Norwich is going to be horrible, and it was just like, will Brentford finish ahead of Watford, kind of? And I'd bet a bunch on that. And so soccer season's going good so far as futures because all my Crystal Palace to finish dead last haven't cashed yet.
Yeah. So basically,
didn't
Arsenal can still shit the bed tomorrow.
But I'm a Brentford
not
guy.
over yet, but
I'm
a win
cheering
tomorrow
I'm cheering for
a result. A result tomorrow for Arsenal would be wonderful.
Outside of when City played Liverpool about a month ago, when they were within 1 point of each other, and that game ended in a 2-2 draw at the Etihad, that was the biggest game of the year. Tomorrow is the second biggest game of the year, honestly, with Spurs and Arsenal, and what's on the line in terms of finishing top 4 and everything that kind of comes along with that. Not that if one team wins tomorrow, like it's a lock, but like obviously there's only 3 games left. Tomorrow being one of them.
3 match days.
We call them fixtures.
Yeah, fixtures, match weeks, match week 36.
Match weeks. Only 3 match weeks.
36.
Yeah. Was any truth that City dumped that semi because they were a little afraid of facing Liverpool in the final?
No,
No
there's-
truth to that?
dude,
Okay.
that was
That's true.
Okay.
there's losses.
Now you're just needling.
Dude, no, I mean, there are
Liverpool's
losses.
been a
heartbreaking
bit of a
losses.
bugaboo. Liverpool's been a bit of a bugaboo for a city.
It was beyond it was beyond inexplicable. Like it was literally like there were 50 and 60-year-old Italian men in the stands crying, weeping tears as though their nona had just passed away. Like, and it was Real Madrid did not have a shot on goal until those two balls went in. And they went in within 88 seconds of each other. Like nobody had even been able to process the first one going in, and then the second one goes in. And it was like, I mean, it was.
That's where you think your flash score is broken. Like, oh,
Yeah,
or at that point you're like,
yes.
oh no, VAR. Like
It was
the
just
VAR
such a
the first
shock.
goal.
Just a shock to this. Like the commentator, I remember the only thing I can remember. I think I blacked out for a minute, but like I heard the commentator say, you know, Manchester City look out. They look like a boxer out on their feet. They look as like they have seen a ghost, which was true because when it went to extra time, they had absolutely no chance of scoring.
Yeah.
Like even if they don't give up the penalty, they had no chance. Like it was just get the penalties and hope for the best at this point because they were like, I mean, like I was mentioning, like there's losses, there's heartbreaking losses, and then there's what happened at the Bernabeu.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll move.
Well,
it's
past
okay
it.
because
Any chance City drops the Premier League? No,
No,
right?
no way.
Not
Not after today.
Too easy down the stretch. Okay.
Yeah.
How about
they
any
got it.
chance? What is the path for Arsenal to blow the 6-1?
Lose tomorrow.
and then another.
Yeah, I don't know who the Gooners have after tomorrow, but
I think it's pretty soft.
they could get a draw. I know they play Everton last game of the year.
That's true.
And Everton's good. That's going to be a tough game because Everton still might be in the relegation battle. But
let's talk about the relegation battle.
Okay.
Because there's a team that I took a position on at a price that I thought was silly, and mostly because I read a funny tweet about them, and it's Leeds to be relegated. Who
You're looking
I don't
good.
even remember. I don't even remember.
They had
who
a good
did
day
this.
today.
Yeah. the tweet that I died laughing about was if it bleeds, it's Leeds.
Yeah.
And then they presumptive, they got their teeth kicked in two matches in a row here now and are tied with Burnley for the last relegation spot. Gun to head.
You're
Leeds or
looking good
Burnley?
though.
Okay.
You're looking good because
I think Leeds is going down.
Burnley and Everton both have a game in hand. So Burnley and Everton have 3 games to play. Leeds have 2. And I mean, Everton is sort of in the clear now that they have 36 and the other 2 teams have 34. But so it's still going to be a battle though. Like that's why that Arsenal game at the end of the year is still going to be tough. But yeah, Burnley's got Spurs, Villa, and Newcastle. That's not easy either. But again, like I think you're looking good. I mean, I can't say for sure, but like, I mean, talk about picking the worst time. Like Leeds in the first half of their last 2 games picked up instant red card and had to play instant red 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, shooting yourself in the foot. So
is that the best feeling in the world though when you've bet against a team? I was going to say the last soccer match that I didn't bet in just some, donkey chalk parlay like I did today and yesterday. By the way, yesterday, this is producer Dan's fault. I went looking for Eurovision prices and I'm using the search function of Bovada, and I run into this place where it's like, hey, here's who is it? The pool match, the 3 La Liga matches, and then the Iberian, like Scotland or Ireland or whatever. It says, hey, here's these 5 big matches today, and then there's 60 parlays built in. It's like all 5 matches have over 9.5 or 9 cards or over corners, excuse me. It's like every match has over 1.5 goals plus at least 3 corners in each half. It's like 18-1. There's a million of these. And I was like, I'm going to pick one I like. And it was dead like immediately. So I ended up having to try to martingale that back. But so literally the last match I think I bet in earnest was a Turkish match where that asshole he had like the horror tackle 36 seconds in, and they throw the red card on them, and then my team scores immediately. It's my favorite, probably my favorite thing in all of sports, because there's nothing like it. You can get you can get 2 technicals in the NBA. They're just going to put another guy in.
Yeah, it's true.
I can't think of some. I don't know. Like, we always talk about how punitive the defensive pass interference is. I don't know if there's a more punitive penalty in all of sports than kicking a player out. Well, not only
no replacement.
An early red card like that. You play 90 minutes down to 10. That's just my favorite thing ever. So, and that's my league, the Turkish league.
Do you guys know what the rules are for relegation if Leeds and Burnley finish tied with 34 points? If they both lose out,
goal differential.
It's goal differential. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
And you're looking good. You're
looking good. Oh, very good. Shit, Leeds has given up 77 goals this year.
Yeah,
that's horrifically bad.
Go look at Norwich.
Norwich is a disaster. Absolute disaster.
Like they might finish bottom half of the table next year.
How did they win 5 matches? What the hell?
It's a miracle.
Right.
It's
all right.
Major league. But the specialization thing. Yeah. Go back to that, because like I said, mine is the Super League, Turkish. I honestly like, it's not even a joke. I like that league because there are like the 4 or 5 good. Well, there's actually one more team from Istanbul that's not as good. But it's like you have the good Istanbul teams, and then the Dark Sea or whatever, and then like the really shitty teams aren't that bad, but they're still bad enough where you do get these big mismatches. And there's always fun matches where you can find these, big mismatches where it's like, man, the underdog's going to lose bad, but they're scoring today. So I've had some luck in that. And then when we give people advice, and just in general in any sport, we say like, hey, find a prop market to get into or something, so you're not trying to just beat Major League Baseball sides the day of the game, an hour before first pitch. And I think maybe there's something to that in soccer too, a specialization. And it doesn't have to be like you fell into the EPL and you're having success there, but I think there's probably something to that. Like, find a league, figure out what style of soccer they play, and how things usually turn out between teams, and maybe you'll have a little more luck than just like you said, you spray the board on every league and you're probably gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have a bad time. I learned very quickly, like, don't do that. Like, it doesn't, that's not going to work. Like, your approach to the Premier League is not going to work in Germany or in Italy or in Spain. Like, they have their quirks, and they're unique, and they're different. And these teams
what
are
a
different.
Segue.
Style of play is different. So
what a segue.
Yeah.
How does Real Madrid match up against Liverpool for the Champions League final? And how do you go about handicapping a Champions League match where you have a clash of styles?
I still think that Manchester City and Liverpool are the 2 best teams on planet Earth. I don't think Bayern is in their category anymore. There's no Italian team that's in their category. Barca's down. Atletico's not great. PSG. And then there's
Don't even
not a chance. So yeah, that is a farmers league for sure. So Real Madrid, I mean, it is literally all Karim Benzema. Like, I went back and kind of looked,
it's crazy,
knowing we were coming on, to be like, okay, so they got here, like, and I wrote it down. So like, they played PSG, speaking of them, in the round of 16, and in that first game, they lost 1-0. Messi missed a penalty in that game, which I had forgotten about until I went back and looked. But Real had 3 attempts on goal, or 3 attempts, period, and none of them were on goal, right? Like, it was absolutely terrible. And then in the second leg, Benzema scores, and they go on to win. Then they blow out Chelsea at Stamford Bridge.
That's right.
Which was wild. And that was all Karim Benzema. It was a Karim Benzema hat trick.
He hit the hat trick, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he got a hat trick. So, like, they killed them there. But it was wild because
Andy was blue.
Dude, yeah, I was not happy with that.
That return.
That's what happens. It's either they're like, hey, this is a good team who can hang with someone, or Benzema's going to take over and they'll beat anybody. So there's like 2 results. And I don't know, like, you've got a good enough manager where that would be the question for me, is like, what does what is my guy who, man, best eyeglasses, and no offense to yours, I love your glasses, but my guy Jurgen, best eyeglass game probably in the world. What is he? What's the game plan to stop him?
Well, you have an amazing back four, and you have arguably the best center back in all of football, which is Virgil van Dijk. So you've got a good partnership with Matip and Van Dijk, two dudes who have played together for a really long time. And again, Van Dijk's probably the best in the world at what he does. They got an amazing holding midfielder in Fabinho sitting in front of them. So like that back five combined with Alisson behind them in net, I mean, it's literally one guy. Like Karim Benzema has legitimately been the dude who has carried them to where they have gotten. Now, you could go, oh, well, what about Rodrigo? Like he scored a huge goal against Chelsea in that second leg. He was the guy who put both goals in against Manchester City in an 88-second span to win them the game, and then Benzema got the penalty in extra time. So, yes, I understand, like, Rodrigo has kind of been like the Robin to Benzema's Batman, but their defense is like Real Madrid's defense is atrocious. Their back four is a nightmare. And some of that's been injuries, but some of it has just been, even when healthy, they're terrible. And I mean, City exploited them so badly. Manchester City should have legitimately scored 6 to possibly 7 goals in the first leg against Real, like at the Etihad, that game that was wild. It finished 4-3. And again, it's all Benzema. He scored a penalty. Like he has been absolutely spectacular. Like every accolade that he has gotten this year is so well deserved. But they're Benzema. They're Benzema and 10 guys, whereas Liverpool is a complete team with Jurgen Klopp, who are tried and true, battle tested amongst these European competitions and in the Premier League, which I feel is so much harder than what La Liga is. So, I would want Liverpool. Yeah, like Liverpool, but it's just the line is a little
cool to lift the trophy.
Yeah, it's like minus 200 almost, and
okay,
it's a little fishy.
We'll find some parlay pieces.
Well, that's where I wonder too.
Yeah.
If they decide to, hey, our defense isn't good, the whole play it slow, just bottle them up and then wait, and maybe we can steal it in extra time. That's what I don't want to see, because that's an ugly game to watch.
Pool to lift the trophy. Benzema, AGS no.
I don't think Real is built to play that. Like that Atletico Madrid is built to play that. Like that's not. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Like they're gonna come out and play football. They're gonna play
the Benzema but don't break defense.
Oh. Okay.
Here's a great segue. Another beautiful segue. It's almost like you're playing.
No bet. I'm betting that
Benzema,
yes,
plays for France. Question mark? He was suspended from the national team for a while there. And honestly, like
some shady stuff.
France
that guy
kind of underwhelmed at Euro. They were a disappointment, maybe the most disappointing team at Euro. And I kind of felt like Benzema didn't really have a ton of chemistry with those guys, and he was sort of the problem.
They don't like him.
They don't like him, right? they
don't like that guy.
Don't like playing with him.
They're not friends. Like they don't like him at all.
It's like that guy that got
what does that do for that?
They're for farting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny till it's not funny.
It's funny till it's not funny, right?
It's funny till you get a pink slip.
Yeah,
right.
A pink eye. No one wants pink eye. So what is the Benzema question mark, or just in general the state of the France team, due to their hopes to repeat as World Cup champions?
Well, I mean,
he's their third cup.
Second. Well, recent second, I believe.
Recent second, yeah. It'd be their third overall.
Yeah, if we want to count ones from the 50s.
No, Zidane lifted the cup. What didn't he? When it was in France?
He lifted that guy with his head.
That was the next year when it was in. Man, now I'm confused. I'm pretty sure France won 1 year. Anyway, I think they've got 2 World Cups. Do they get a third? And how does Benzema fit into the puzzle?
I don't think they get a third, but Benzema is absolutely fitting into that puzzle, because it's not like after the year he's had, like he has literally been the best player in the world like this year. So he's of course going to be on the team, but everybody again will still hate him. Like, I mean, if you don't know what Benzema was up to with that French national team and some of his teammates, and like there's blackmail involved. There's like women involved. Like
Not
it is.
good.
She got real.
It is a thing, man. Like
Yeah.
it is a TV
Yeah.
movie
Soap
waiting to
opera.
happen. So yeah, they don't. No, I don't think. I think there are some other teams who have surpassed France in Europe. I mean, England is still the most talented team.
Okay.
Italy will be back. Belgium is still completely loaded and stacked. And then you just throw the rest of the world into the mix. Like that's when it just gets wild. Like with Euros, you're like, okay, we can start to pinpoint like these great European teams, the good ones, and then who's going to kind of suffer. But like,
Okay.
you start throwing South American teams and African teams and Asian teams into the mix, and then it becomes like it just becomes a whole lot tougher to handicap.
You
It's,
got
it's
any,
funny how it comes full circle, Drew, because
Yeah.
like I've said, my favorite thing about the NHL playoffs, besides the games, just like getting a game 7 or 2 in the first round is so awesome. Just like I don't even care who the teams are. I love a game 7 in any sport. But outside of that, like I mentioned, I love watching the Toronto faithful lose their minds when the Leafs eventually flame out, and it's always funny to me. It's the same thing with the World Cup and Euros, I guess. It's like the rah, it's coming home, and then England doesn't win. Like that's probably my favorite part of World Cup and Euros is when England loses.
Suffering.
Although
suffering.
Do you guys know the song though? Like the "It's Coming Home" song.
It's coming. Yeah, it's
like
coming.
That's a catchy
home.
ass tune.
It's coming home.
I
Yeah, it's
do
from
like
like 96
catchy.
96 Euros. That thing's been around for a while.
It's coming.
Hey, so
Football's
first of all, I'm officially a hockey mush. Both hockey both hockey contests being contested right now are very, very competitive. Neither one is over by a long stretch.
But you took the unders?
No, I didn't, but I was ready to send the Panthers packing out of the playoffs. It's 3-3. And then the Penguins Rangers, I won't spoil it for you. You can go back and check it out yourself, but
it's okay.
There was
you
a
can
couple
spoil it
minutes.
for me.
There was a couple minutes there that were shit was bananas.
Are we 2-2?
It's 4-3 Rangers.
It's 4-3 Rangers.
It's 4-3 Rangers. Yeah.
Okay.
The second period.
That's been crazy.
Wow. Okay. Hey, good for the Panthers though. Like good
for the Panthers. Yeah. They're not giving up that easy.
Yeah, good for them.
Andy, did you bet any World Cup futures?
I have nothing. No, nothing pending.
Nothing.
Italy to win the World Cup was my only one.
I think that's not going to cash.
It might not get there. No, I didn't actually place that. I do think it's funny how can a team win the Euros and then not make the fucking World Cup? You know what they need to do? They need to find their way into CONCACAF.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just a minute ago said Italy will be back, and they're not even like what?
This is what I. Well, they'll be. We assumed you meant in 5 years, but
it was them in Portugal that weren't. One of the two wasn't.
One of them was going home.
Yeah,
right?
that's
like, wow. Okay.
That's what bugs me. Was like we're at a point where, and I get there's a money involved, but like it's like we're at a point where Panama has a shot here to get into the World Cup, and it's like but we're leaving Italy or Portugal? Like,
why are we doing this? What are we doing?
It's like the Champions League.
Yeah.
They're not giving 4 spots to, the Georgian League. They give all the good spots. That's why England gets 4 in no matter what. And they have another one in the playoff. And like maybe we should just give 2 or 1.
Serbia and Poland got in somehow from Europe, and Italy did not though. So we can
it's
blame
a weird
we
system.
can blame Italy. We can blame Italy.
I don't mind blaming Italy as well.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I feel tied to them because of the Euro final was electric.
Yeah, I don't want to go super far down this road, but you brought up Van Dijk as the best center back in the world. Obviously plays for Netherlands. It's a very Dutch name. Maybe the Dutchest name I've heard in a while. The Dutch got a good draw. They're in Pot A. And
we were Dutch and Portugal, or Dutch and Belgium. Those were our squads.
Yeah,
for
last time.
Euro,
all because of the draw. Yeah, all because of the draw. The Dutch are in a pot with Qatar, Ecuador, and Senegal. That sounds very winnable. A winning Group A, you would then play the runner-up in Group B. I think that's how that works.
Correct.
Group A winner plays Group B runner-up, who might be Team USA, presumably, unless we lose to Iran or whoever the UEFA Path A winner is.
How about Black Friday, England and the USA?
Oh yeah, right on the day after Thanksgiving. That's
Yeah.
gonna
I
be
know. I didn't
fantastic.
be awesome.
understand why everybody was so excited about, like, people who are legitimately U.S. national team fans were just jacked about that. I'm like, no, they're gonna kick the shit out of us. Like,
No,
Yeah, it's not
that's a
gonna
really
be-
good team. Like,
It'll be
it's fun, but
it'll be
like,
fun for everybody in America to have that day off and care about soccer. That'll be
yeah,
cool.
it's
It'll be
fun to
that'll be
watch
cool.
it. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance that is a Germany Brazil kind of thing where it's like, oh my god, we're down 5-0.
We are not going to be down 5-0.
I don't know why. I don't know the rah-rah USA stuff kills me.
You
'cause
just
I
still
don't
have it's
think we're
coming
that
home
good.
stuck in your head. Like you're still. It's
I don't
coming
like it. I want England to lose always. It's hilarious. to me,
it's at a good time. It's 22 Greenwich Mean Time, so that's a good time for us, right? That'd be like primetime USA, right? Or like at least middle of the day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll be good.
that'll be sick. Okay. All right.
see how
So
those fucking limey bastards hold up in the heat.
do so yeah, I mean the path, I mean personally, the path for the Dutch looks pretty damn decent. They're gonna presumably have to play Argentina in the quarterfinals. Argentina always chokes, so I wouldn't even write them in at this point. You know, any other squads that are worth kind of paying close attention to and trying to gauge form as we get closer to this tournament?
Whew. I don't really know. We have a handful of like friendlies to go, like some warm-up matches in the summertime. I think that's like the last time these teams are allowed to get together before the November, December kickoff. So I don't know. I think it's just as long as people don't get hurt, you know, like that's the biggest thing is like, are we going to lose anybody of great significance? Like the last thing Belgium needs is like, you know, Kevin De Bruyne doing something terrible to his, you know, ankle or like, you know, like just things like that, or like
Belgium's getting
Premier
old
League
in general.
They are like, this is pretty much the last run with that group of guys. But no, I think you're right. You got to go back and look at those draws and see like who has who. Because I'd have to click on it and bring it back up. But yeah, like to your point, the Netherlands, like that would be a good bet to come out of that group.
When is the Women's World Cup? We had a lot of fun with that one too.
Ooh, probably
Is that
next year.
Next year? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2023, I think.
There was
2019 is when we did it.
Every African team has like a badass nickname. And I remember like there was this one squad I bet a few times where they were I think it was against South Korea. I had some overs against them.
So
like,
Andy,
squad.
Real quick, with 4 minutes to go, Drew Holiday got his 21st point. And it is a 2-point game in the Garden. 2 points in the Garden.
Comes down to every casual NBA fan's worst opinion. Why don't they just start them tied with like 3 minutes left?
Oh, I know.
Because it always comes down to it. But it's true. A lot of these games, it's like
great.
It's a 15-point game. But every fourth quarter has been unsolvable in the NBA.
Giannis just sick block on Horford. Oh, this is going Bucks. This is going Bucks way. Uh-oh.
It's coming home to Milwaukee.
It's coming home.
What? I mean, just last kind of thought on the World Cup. I joked about, you know, those pasty pea eaters because they eat peas and potatoes and mushy food and never get any sun anyway. Like they have to go to a semi-hostile. It's still hot there in the summer or in the winter. Like, the fact that it's at a weird time right in the middle of club, league, whatever you want to play, and then also it's hotter than Dutch love down there. Like, is that bad for certain teams?
I think it would be bad for most. Yeah, I think it would be bad for most teams, like in that regard. But like Cutter says that they have built these stadiums like in the most state-of-the-art way, where like there's air conditioning and like even without like the roof, it's climate controlled and all this other nonsense. And it's like, well, yeah, I hope so, because like thousands of people died building those stadiums. For people. So like, I hope they are air conditioned.
Greg Norman apologized for that.
Oh, he was. Oh God, I'm not even. Yeah,
no, it's super messed up. That was the worst quote I've seen in years.
Yeah.
I do wonder.
Slave labor is never funny if you're watching.
No, and I wonder how that's going to go though, because I went to a game in Arizona, a Diamondbacks game, in the absolute heat of summer, where it was 112 out, And
Oh.
I tell my wife, I'm like, the
It's a
baseball
dry
game.
heat. That's what you say.
Well,
right?
it was a dry heat. It was still hot. It sucked. But I said, when we get into the stadium, it's covered. It'll be cooler. It was not. Like, it's still it's one thing to have a house with some shade and have a big central air thing. It's another to try to cool off an arena of that size with that many people in it. Like, it was still 85 damn degrees in that place. Like, it wasn't comfortable. And I really don't think they have, like, maybe they just have enough oil money they can make it work, but
Maybe.
So
I doubt it. From
Yeah,
that
this
one
feels like-
experience I had.
feels like
7
maybe
years
I
ago.
need to look harder at Brazil. That seems
potentially,
like a team. That seems like a team that's in their summertime.
or
They
teams with a
maybe-
good bench. Teams with a good bench.
Teams with good bench. Okay.
So
Are
you
they
can-
are
you
they
can
still
rotate.
giving
On
them
the
the
younger
extra
side.
sub?
Yeah.
Remember we added subs because of the virus? Like, remember is that still a
Did we?
thing where you get a 5th sub?
I mean, they had it in Champions League where you had 5 subs, but you didn't get 5 in the Premier League. They still kept that to 3. So I'm not actually sure what FIFA
I
decided
hope
for this
so
tournament.
because it's super hot.
I would
it's
also
fun to
think
think
that they
that-
would err on the side of caution. They would be like, we're going to go 5 subs because it's 200 degrees outside.
It
So
seems smart, yeah.
Okay.
let's go with that.
Okay. Well, let's not speculate any more than this. But I love talking a little bit of World Cup action
I'm
and
jacked
appreciate all
up
the
for it. I
insight.
forgot how far it is from us.
I'll let you
though.
go enjoy the final frame. You still got 10 minutes left in your Pens game. See if they can if
Yeah.
they can come back and
Get to OT here.
Yeah, get to
potentially.
OT. Why not? Best of luck to you on Flames
Thank you.
in Flames in Reg.
Yes,
Flames in
that's
Reg
the one.
tonight.
Tonight,
All
yeah.
right, let's go Flames, and then best of all luck to all of us who are now Avalanche.
We are all
we are
Avs.
all part. We are all Avs.
I did
right?
make an Avalanche bet during the podcast. So
Good job.
It's good.
Uruguay 50-1, huh?
Oof, man.
All right.
Bucks just a brutal sequence. Couldn't get it to fall. I don't know. Now I need him just to cover. Come on. Guys.
We'll get there. We'll get there. All right, Smitty, appreciate your time. Go enjoy the rest of the hockey. And,
Yep. All right. Yeah.
thanks for
Appreciate it,
coming
man.
on,
And for
Thanks,
sure,
dude.
check Smitty out at NHL Picks 2. That's all one. That's all one word. Anything else you'd like to let people know about to check out your work?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me, though. This was fun.
course,
It's good to talk some hockey and some soccer here. So fun times.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate it. Great work by you. And
Yeah, thanks, dudes.
Dan, let's set the music. Man, what a
What'd
wild.
you get, 5.5?
Yes, I had 5.5. It's gonna come down to it.
It's going to come down to it.
Horford just got the tip dunk. 2 minutes remaining. Yeah, it's gonna be
Tip
close.
dunk. I'm hoping to give